Take me to the bathroom. I gotta pee now.
He's a puppet. He can't pee.
You don't know what I got.
I like to spend my days making up theories about things that aren't important in the least. I'm the kind of person that will go down a rabbit hole of conspiracies and theories about things that don't even matter. You know, saying it out loud now, I think I might just be neurodivergent. But anyways, it's beneficial in this case because recently people have been giving me a lot of pushback on my Victorious video, specifically around my comments about Rex and Robbie. I've gotten so many comments saying Rex isn't real, he's just a puppet, an amalgamation of Robbie's mind, and that Robbie is just a really good ventriloquist. And that's one possible answer, but there's so much more evidence throughout the show to support the fact that Rex is a sentient being, fully separate and apart from Robbie. And you know, in that video, I made a side comment that I could really make a whole video talking about the Rex phenomenon, but I never really had any intentions to do it. But you know what? I've got nothing better to do, and neither do you guys, so we're gonna have the Rex talk. Fuck it, we're going down the rabbit hole. But before we really get into it, I want you guys to know that I recently made a Twitter account. You know, I really wanted to create more avenues for us to connect, so go follow me on there. Please, the other commentary YouTubers are gonna make fun of me if I have no followers. So follow my Twitter, the link will be in the description box below. Now let's get into it. So to really break this down, we're gonna have to go through a syllabus because I really need you guys to walk with me here. This is the only way we're gonna get through this, so get your pens and notebooks out because it might get a little complicated. And actually, to really deconstruct the Robbie and Rex theory, you have to have a really high IQ and a basic understanding of physics. Otherwise, certain ideas are just gonna go over your head. So first things first, there are some things that we have to agree on and come to a general consensus about when approaching the Rex being alive theory. The first of which is that we have to follow the rules of the world, no matter how nonsensical it is. Now, I'm an imaginative person. I don't feel the need to really break down and demystify things that don't require it. If a TV show, movie, or any piece of media really presents something to me that would just not be possible in the real world, I have absolutely no issue playing along. In fact, following along with the rules of the world only makes the viewing experience so much more fun. So if you want me to believe that wizards and magic are real, you know what? You couldn't be more right. Where can I get my wand? If you want me to believe that dragons and ice zombies are real, great. Let me hop on Drogon and Dracarys the hell out of some Nightwalkers. If you're telling me that interdimensional space travel is possible, awesome. I want to meet the version of myself that broke into Sam Levinson's house and erased his entire hard drive. If only we could be so lucky. I love fantasy. I love stories that takes place in worlds that are more fantastical and magical than our own. So when approaching the Rex theory, if the show is telling us either overtly or through subtle depiction that this puppet is a sentient being capable of existing independent of Robbie, then we have to accept that. In fact, why would you want to think differently? It's so much more fun watching Victorious if you jump on the Rex is actually a living being train. Like, how dull and boring do you have to be for you to go through this show accepting that Rex is just a plain old puppet?
Corny, lame, boo. Tomato, 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 I'm throwing tomatoes.
Let's have fun. Let's take what this world tells us as the ultimate truth. Now, just because I know there are already going to be purists trying to ruin the fun, obviously in the real world, Rex is just a puppet. I know, I get it. It's a prop created for the show, voiced by an actor. But in the context of the show, Victorious, and the larger Dan Schneider universe, this is not true. So before we go forward, we need to agree to rule 1, which is we follow the rules of the world. I want you guys to write that in your notebooks. Great. The next thing we have to agree on is that if we do come to the consensus that Rex is real, then we also have to agree that Robbie's talent is not ventriloquism. These two cannot be true at the same time. If Rex is a real boy, then when he interacts with Robbie and other characters in the show, that is just Rex interacting with people, not Robbie using his talent of ventriloquism. Okay? Great. And lastly, and probably most importantly, we have to agree that the world building in this show is inherently flawed, lacks consistent logic, and will undoubtedly support and contradict its own ideas. And the reason I say this is because as we go through this video, there's going to be a lot of contradictions, mostly because of the numerous inconsistencies within the Dan Schneider universe. All the Dan Schneider shows are connected in some way and are largely believed to also take place in the exact same universe, though that theory is constantly contradicted and modeled across the multiple shows in the universe, and that also affects the Rex theory. I'm actually working on a larger video. I want to do a whole analysis on the inconsistencies of the Dan Schneider universe, but that's going to be later down the road. But for now, we have to accept that because of the inconsistencies in the universe, the Rex is real theory and its opposition will always have contradictions. So to come to a final consensus on whether or not Rex is real, it will really just boil down to how much evidence there is to support that fact versus the evidence there is to challenge it. So that's what we're working with here. Now with that out of the way, let's get into this with open minds and definitively put this debate to rest once and for all. So before I outline my theory on why I think Rex is real, I want to first analyze the theory that Rex is not real. So I hope we're all prepared. Let's officially go down the rabbit hole.
Goodbye, Dinah. Goodbye.
Rex is just a puppet. So ventriloquism as an art form has been around for centuries, literally dating all the way back to the 1700s. It involves a performer throwing their voice by keeping their mouth slightly open to create the illusion that sounds are coming from the puppet. The real trick to ventriloquism is drawing an audience's attention to the puppet. Once we see something moving and mimicking mouth movements, our minds will make the association that those sounds are coming from the puppet. Now, Matt Bennett did take some ventriloquism classes in order to play Robbie, but he isn't providing the voice of Rex. Matt focuses on the movement of Rex, and the voice is provided by actor Jake Farrow, who has appeared in other Nickelodeon shows such as Drake and Josh. So since the pilot episode when we were introduced to Robbie and Rex, it seemed that while everyone addressed Rex and treated him like an actual person, they were really just doing that because Robbie treats Rex as a real person, and so the whole cast and extended characters are essentially just humoring Robbie's delusion.
That's hilarious.
You're sick, Rex.
What happened, man? We used to be tight.
The theory of Rex just being a puppet is really cruxed on the idea that Robbie has a neurosis. Robbie is not mentally stable. He either has multiple personality disorder or dissociative personality disorder, and Rex is in fact not a separate identity from Robbie, but rather just an expression of Robbie's inner feelings. The idea basically is that Robbie is shy, timid, not very confident, and so in order to truly express himself and how he feels, he created the Rex character as a way of voicing his innermost thoughts and desires. But as we watch the show, we quickly realize that Rex spends most of the time berating and making fun of Robbie.
Listen, I need your guys' help.
You need professional help.
I don't either!
It says Robbie will never be loved by a woman.
What?
Come on, Rob. You want to be a loser the rest of your life?
I'm not a loser now!
Yeah, what was I thinking?
And so Rex is not just a separate identity from Robbie, a way for him to express his inner feelings. No, it goes beyond that. Rex is a split personality that is able to function as a different entity from Robbie while still being one and the same. Robbie and Rex are the same person, but Rex is a separate identity in Robbie's head, which is why he behaves so differently from Robbie, but also has no issue insulting and abusing him. This is an idea of Rex being an amalgamation of Robbie's anxieties and insecurities personified in a split personality that tortures him endlessly. We get more of an in-depth understanding of this dynamic in Season 1, Episode 10, Beck's Big Break. So in this episode, Robbie and Rex take over the B storyline, while Tori and the rest of the cast are helping Beck with his first movie role. Robbie has been having reoccurring nightmares where Rex, being over 50 feet tall, physically abuses him in some way, either sitting on him or blowing snot on him. Charming. Eventually, this begins to take a toll on Robbie as he begins to have trouble sleeping at night and staying awake during school. Eventually, Kat sets up an appointment for Robbie with the school's guidance counselor, Lane. During the session, Lane advises Robbie to do the session without Rex, and he attempts to understand Robbie's psychosis. He explains that because Rex belittles and berates Robbie with words, his subconscious amplifies that abuse when he's sleeping, causing him to experience those nightmares. Lane has Robbie stand up to Rex by demanding and taking a cookie, despite Rex also wanting the cookie.
I want the cookie!
By standing up to Rex, he could resolve the issues he was experiencing while dreaming. Now in this episode, it's very clear that the people around Robbie understand that Rex is just a puppet. Yet, Lane addresses Rex and recognizes him as a separate identity from Robbie, still with the understanding that Rex is just a puppet. Also noteworthy here is the detail of when Robbie finally stands up to Rex, Rex is uncharacteristically quiet, not insulting Robbie or coming up with a witty comeback. Robbie had seemingly conquered his psychosis. Only not really, Rex would continue to verbally and at times physically abuse Robbie moving forward, but at least Robbie isn't having nightmares about it anymore. Still, this all goes to support the idea that Rex only exists as an extension of Robbie. This is actually supported by the fact that Rex does not appear to move or speak to other people unless Robbie is around. Well, sometimes. For the most part, Rex is completely inanimate, unless in the presence of Robbie. We see this multiple times throughout the series, where when rarely they are separated, Rex acts as a regular inanimate puppet in the absence of Robbie, supporting the idea that Rex is only real to Robbie and only exists because of Robbie. One of the best examples of this was in Season 1, Episode 14, Rex Dies. In the episode, Robbie is casted as the lead in one of Psychosis' play, and on the day of opening night, while changing into his costume, Robbie leaves Rex in the care of Tori. Again, we recognize that while Robbie is away, Rex does not speak or move the entire time. For the production of the play, in order to simulate a tornado, a huge propeller device was used. While testing the machine, Tori accidentally had it set to suck instead of blow, sucking Rex into the machine, causing great damage. Once removed, Rex is very noticeably in terrible condition, ripped, broken, and very mangled. Interestingly, Rex again only speaks when Robbie takes him, although this time in a much more strained, injured voice.
Oh! Oh, is that you, Rob?
This is also particularly interesting because we have seen Rex experience pain before, but again only in the presence of Robbie.
Oh, my arm! Oh! Ah!
Give me his arm back!
Ah! That witch got sunscreen in my eyes! Help me, Rob!
You knocked him unconscious!
In fact, in situations where Rex should experience pain, we don't witness it if Robbie isn't around.
What'd you fry?
Rex's foot.
So if Rex were truly real, why then would he have not screamed or exclaimed while being shredded by the tornado machine? Anyways, Tori takes it upon herself to take Rex to the hospital. Robbie has to stay behind to do the play, and Kat, Beck, and Jade accompany Tori all under the premise of taking Rex to a hospital to get the proper care he needs for his injuries. This was all for the benefit of Robbie, however, as once out of his presence, they recognize the absurdity of bringing a puppet to a hospital for medical care. We can see here clearly that while the entire cast at some point have directly interacted with Rex, addressed him, and treated him as a real person, that was all for the benefit of Robbie. They all recognize that Rex is just a puppet, but he is still very real to Robbie. Jade thinks this is the perfect opportunity for Robbie to overcome his psychosis. By allowing Rex to die, Robbie can finally be free and move on with his life as a normal teenager. The gang agrees to take Rex to a hospital and set up a fake scenario in which Rex would be hooked up to a life monitor that is set to time out, in order to give Robbie the opportunity to say goodbye to Rex and have the full experience of Rex passing away, giving him closure and allowing him to finally move on and be normal. Amazingly, the doctor agrees to this, and Robbie spends his final moments with Rex. The monitor went off as scheduled, and Rex officially passed away.
I'm sorry.
Robbie is completely heartbroken. However, Tori at the last minute starts up the monitor, explaining a miraculous recovery for Rex. Robbie speaks to Rex, and Rex responds singing his favorite song.
Speak to me, buddy!
Meant for me and I'm meant for you.
Rex!
Rex is alive and well and will be just fine. This episode actually provides more context and evidence around the theory of Rex simply being a manifestation of Robbie's imagination, one of presumably multiple personalities inhabiting Robbie's psyche. We see throughout the episode how Rex behaves as an inanimate object in the absence of Robbie, but more interestingly, we also see where what Robbie believes greatly affects how Rex is portrayed and characterized. Rex has a forced pained speech because Robbie believes Rex is hurt. When Rex is at the hospital in bandages and stitches, Rex remains silent because Robbie believes Rex is in a coma. And when the monitor goes off, Robbie believes Rex has passed away, so he does. It's only when Tori starts up the monitor again, explaining a miraculous recovery for Rex, does Rex begin to speak. Rex is alive because Robbie believes he's alive again. So we see very clearly that as real as Rex feels, he truly is only real because Robbie believes him to be. And the people around him, though cognizant of the fact that Rex is simply a puppet, treats Rex as a real person, especially around Robbie, in a weird way enabling and fostering his psychosis to worsen. After all, if everyone else around Robbie also treats Rex like a real person, that only strengthens his belief that Rex is real. This further supports the idea that Rex is truly just a split personality of Robbie, another identity that manifests itself in the form of Rex the puppet. This idea is explored further in Season 4, Episode 8, Robbie Sells Rex. In this episode, Mason Thorne-Smith, record producer and owner of Neutronium Records, visits Hollywood Arts to give a keynote on the music industry. When Robbie attempts to ask Mason a question, he is berated by Rex, piquing Mason's intrigue. Mason invites Robbie to visit him at the record label. Though Robbie believes the meeting is about a potential music opportunity, Mason really wants to speak with Robbie to convince him to sell Rex to his son, who is also interested in puppets. Robbie at first is very hesitant, but after being pressured and actually encouraged by Rex himself,
I mean, selling Rex, doesn't that make me a terrible friend?
Man, I'd sell you for half a sandwich.
Robbie agrees to sell Rex in exchange for the son's puppet, Gunter. Again, once Rex is handed over to Mason's son, Rex does not speak. We don't hear the Rex voice we're used to hearing. Also, when Mason's son uses Rex, he very clearly is using his own voice when voicing Rex.
Cows go! Cows go who? No, cows go moo!
Rex's personality and identity doesn't carry over when being used by someone other than Robbie. Even more interesting than that is when Robbie uses Gunter, the new puppet, he has a completely different voice and personality than Rex.
Just you and me, Gunter.
Splendid! I wouldn't want it any other way.
He's kinder and extremely agreeable to Robbie's needs and has a very new and distinct identity from the Rex identity. So what we're seeing here is a completely new identity that Robbie has, because again, when Gunter is being used by Mason's son, he is very clearly using his own voice to voice him and is acting as a regular inanimate puppet. But when Robbie uses Gunter, he has a new voice and a new personality and characterization. So Robbie's psychosis appears to be a split dissociative personality disorder, where the multiple split personalities are only able to manifest themselves when being channeled through a distinct puppet. Presumably, Robbie has a plethora of different personalities, and these puppets act as conduits, blank empty slates for Robbie to project and plaster one of his different personalities onto. Think the movie Split, but less crazy. I think a good experiment would be to have Robbie in a room with a bunch of puppets with different features, just to see how many different voices and personalities we get out of him. Anyways, Robbie struggles with his decision to sell Rex and has hallucinations where he not only hears Rex, but sees Rex around him.
Now why don't you just calm down and quit acting like a fool?
The Rex personality, now without the puppet to channel through, is breaking away from Robbie's mind in a violent way, causing him to have hallucinations. Eventually, Robbie decides he must try to get Rex back. Despite initially not wanting to give the puppet back, Mason's son was persuaded by hormones. Now, back with Robbie, Rex immediately speaks and behaves as he normally does, jealous that Robbie had spent time with another puppet, and they start acting like an old married couple.
This other puppet, do you love him?
Gunter?
Don't say his name.
Seemingly an innocent feeling, but no. I recognize something much more nefarious happening here. Rex is Robbie's most dominant personality, and without the physical conduit of a puppet, can only manifest himself through hallucinations. Still, Rex has a dominant personality, and is able to boss Robbie around to get him to do what he wants. Should another personality, say Gunter, have the opportunity to manifest themselves, they pose a threat, stripping Rex of his control of Robbie, usurping Rex's role as the dominant personality. So we can see very clearly that Rex the puppet is an inanimate object, but Rex the persona is very real. Real because Robbie believes him to be, and he's determined to hold on to control over Robbie's mind, whatever means necessary. Now forget all of that, because Rex is not a split personality of Robbie, nor is Rex the puppet just a puppet. No, Rex is very real. Rex is a real boy.
Look, Geppetto, I'm a real live boy.
Now, Rex the puppet being real is actually supported constantly throughout the show. We as the audience are to believe that this puppet is no puppet at all, but is a sentient being that can exist completely outside of Robbie. Rex and Robbie are actually offended when anyone refers to Rex as a puppet, and they consider it an offensive term.
Don't call him a puppet! That's an offensive term!
There are many subtle things the show does to support the idea of Rex being real, from never crediting Rex's voice actor Jake Farrow to Rex having a much more adventurous sex life than Robbie. In case anyone's confused, that's a hickey. There are many small hints in the show to support the fact that not only is Rex real, but also leads an exciting life outside of Robbie. The main idea supporting this theory is the idea that Rex is able to move without Robbie, and while this is never shown on camera, except when it was, there's still so many instances of explanations and interactions that imply Rex can not only move independently of Robbie, but also leads a far more interesting life than him. We've seen this in the episode Wi-Fi in the Sky, where Robbie and Rex intrude on a video call with Tori, Beck, Andre, and Kat. They want to get the gang's opinion on an argument they're having. Robbie asks Rex if he wanted to see a movie, and Rex agreed. The night of the movie comes around, and Rex says he's made other plans. Now, what's interesting is that for Rex to be able to make plans without Robbie knowing, they had to have been separated. And if Rex made other plans with someone else, the only way that he can do that without Robbie is if he's able to exist on his own. Also, in relaying his plans with other people, Robbie isn't invited, so Rex was going to have a night on the town while Robbie stayed home. A seemingly impossible feat if it weren't for the fact that Rex is real. In the episode Tori Torture's Teacher, Robbie and Rex are playing hide and seek, and Robbie is having difficulty finding Rex until this happens.
Oh man.
So not only was Rex able to move on his own, hiding from Robbie in Tori's backpack, but even without Robbie knowing where Rex was, Rex spoke. Robbie had no idea Rex was in Tori's bag, and so would not have been able to voice Rex, but Rex was still able to speak. In the episode Prom, Rex is hungover from partying with girls at Northwich, seemingly without Robbie. Rex went out to party without Robbie and is feeling the consequences of that. I also just really want to meet the girl that gave Rex a hickey. I'm sure she's a lot of fun. In the episode Who Did to Trina, Trina was badly injured while performing in Tori's play. It is speculated that this was an act of sabotage, and the entire episode revolves around trying to find the culprit. Each one of the suspects recounts their interactions with Trina, but at the end, the general consensus is that it was all just an accident. That is until at the end of the episode where it is revealed that Rex was actually the one who did it, after Trina hit him when he made sexual advances towards her. Robbie protected Rex from getting into trouble, but it was still implied that Rex did this independently of Robbie. After all, there was no reason for Robbie to be mad at Trina.
Nobody ever suspects the puppet.
I thought you hated that word.
It's okay if I say it.
There are many other instances of Rex acting independently of Robbie even outside of the show. In other Victorious media, such as in the Wii video game where you play as Tori, one of your tasks is to snap Robbie out of a trance because he's become addicted to his pear pad. To do this, you need the help of Rex, who is hidden away in Robbie's backpack, but is able to speak and interact with other characters despite Robbie not being in the room.
I was running out of air in there. Tori, you may have saved my life.
Oh. Or in this iCarly segment, where the cast acts as themselves instead of their characters. The joke being that they don't know whether or not they should be in character for the segment, and the cast of Victorious infiltrates the bit, including Rex, who is far away from Robbie, but is still able to speak and move on his own.
How can Rex be talking when I'm nowhere near him?
How come you haven't had a date since your bat mitzvah?
Hey, is Rex in character? Are we supposed to be in character?
Still probably the best example of Rex being an independent being outside of Robbie can be seen in the episode Blooptorious. Now, this is a pretty interesting episode because it operates on both a fictitious and meta level. The cast are being interviewed on their involvement in the show. Victorious is treated as a sitcom, and the cast are all being referred to by their in real life names, while still playing a fictional version of themselves, and the host of the interviews was none other than Christopher Kane. Christopher Kane, like the rest of the cast, is an actor portraying a character, Rex Powers. He has a British accent, is portrayed as being much older than the rest of the cast, and very inappropriately has a crush on Victoria Justice.
I'm in love with you.
The structure of this episode and the revelation of Christopher Kane as a persona completely shatters the idea of Rex, both the character in the show and Rex the physical puppet, as being imaginary constructs of Robbie's mind. Now, we're meant to understand that like every other character on the show, Rex is being portrayed by an in-universe real actor. Christopher Kane, like all the other actors, went through an audition process to land the role of Rex, but is able to exist independently without the assistance of a ventriloquist. Also, all the other actors relate to Christopher Kane normally as just another member of the cast, a part of the show. Everyone from Daniela Monet to Liz Gillies to Victoria Justice treat him as a real person. Even in the episode, he's credited as appearing as himself. Throughout the episode, we are given more evidence to support the fact that Christopher Kane and by extension Rex are real, including the fact that Christopher Kane is married and has acted and appeared in other shows other than Victorious. I wonder if in those other shows, his character is also a puppet. Anyways, you can already quickly tell that Christopher Kane's persona is extremely different from Rex, even the way they speak. Well, apparently this was a character choice requested by the casting directors. When Christopher Kane first went into the audition for Rex, he played the character very closely to how he already is, but was instructed to make the character more urban.
Psychosis. Down the hall, swing a left at the water fountain, second door on your right. Was that more in the zone?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Christopher Kane also appeared in the iCarly episode I Blew Too, again acting as the host of the show, where he is also credited as appearing as himself. He interviews the cast of iCarly and goes to their bloopers. Interestingly enough, he appears to have a strong disdain for the iCarly show, presumably because it represented competition for his own show, Victorious. He's a lot more abrasive with the cast of iCarly, doesn't seem to like any of them that much, well, except for Gibby. He's completely infatuated with Gibby. His strongest disdain, though, is reserved for Jerry Traynor, Spencer's actor. There seems to be a long history of bad blood between the two. Christopher was at one point considering going for the role of Spencer in iCarly, but dropped out mid-audition because he felt the material was mediocre. The part eventually went to Jerry, of course, and that seems to have instigated a feud between them, though their bad blood runs much deeper, because Jerry's current girlfriend is apparently Christopher's ex-girlfriend, and Christopher makes a point to flaunt that fact in Jerry's face. The introduction of Christopher Kane as a character was an intentional effort by the show to further canonize the idea of Rex being real. Interestingly enough, Rex's voice actor Jake Farrow also voices Christopher Kane, but is never credited as such in any of the episodes. The idea of Rex being real does raise the question of how Robbie even first came into contact with him, and why Rex chooses to stay with Robbie, someone who he undoubtedly cares for, but still thinks very little of. Where did Rex come from? What's his purpose here? And probably most importantly, why is he alive? My theory is that the where, the why, and the how aren't important. It doesn't matter why Rex is alive or how he came to be alive. The important thing is what role does Rex play in Robbie's life. From the very beginning, Robbie was depicted as having incredibly low self-esteem. He's a bit awkward and has trouble fitting in, and Rex kind of acts as Robbie's guardian angel, pushing him to take on new experiences and to come out of his comfort zone. Rex is incredibly verbally abusive to Robbie, but I'd like to think that in Rex's own twisted way, he sees it as a necessary evil to get Robbie to where he needs to be. Robbie, especially in the earlier seasons, was very non-confrontational, shy, and self-deprecating. In fact, his so-called friends only further exacerbate his feelings of inadequacies and feelings of being left out.
Hey, what's wrong with me?
You are
there's a bunch of things.
You smell like a baby.
A little awkward. Irritating. You guys!
They all treat Robbie poorly and have no issues telling him just how weird and off-putting he is to his face. Rex, acting as Robbie's guardian angel, assists Robbie in navigating social cues and human interactions in order to make it easier for Robbie to fit in and be normal. Despite also being rude to Robbie, Rex more than anyone else constantly gives Robbie advice to help push him.
People caught on video. Put that on your stupid blog if you want it to be popular.
I wish I asked her before Tug did.
Dude, you've been lied to. Cat doesn't have a date to the prom.
It might not always be great advice, but it's advice nonetheless. That's why my theory of who Rex is and how he came to be is the idea of this sentient being going around the world to inspire, motivate, and help young awkward boys blossom into manhood. We also see that as the show progresses, Robbie becomes increasingly more confident and direct with his intentions. By the time we reach season 4, Robbie is taking risks and doing things that season 1 Robbie would never have dreamed of. I don't think it's coincidental that while we are witnessing this change in Robbie's character, we are also seeing less and less of Rex. By season 4, Robbie appears frequently without Rex, seemingly not needing his advice or encouragement anymore. Rex only appears in 5 of the 13 episodes in season 4. That further culminates in the fact that in the episode Robbie sells Rex, Rex has no issue being sold and actually encourages Robbie to give him away. Rex recognizes that his work here is done and that Robbie has truly grown up and is ready to face the world on his own. It's time for Rex to move on to a new kid, someone who really needs him, and that person is no longer Robbie. Robbie doesn't need Rex anymore, and Rex recognizes this. He's done his part, and now Robbie is able to function and navigate his day-to-day life and human interactions because Rex has given him the tools to do so. He can move on and forge a brave new path for himself. Yeah, it might be scary, he may have moments of doubt, but he can rest assured that no matter what the future holds, his best friend, no, his brother, will always be there, looking out for him. Or Rex is just a demon sent by Satan to torture Robbie for all eternity. Whichever works. Now there's one depiction of Rex that simultaneously supports this idea while shitting on the whole universe as a whole, and it actually comes from a completely new series, a successor to the legacy of Victorious. One that would be remembered for its controversies both on set and off, and would still be talked about for years to come. That's right, Game Shakers. So Game Shakers was a TV show produced again by Dan Schneider and is straight to have existed in the same universe as other shows such as iCarly and Victorious. The series follows two young girls, Gabe and Kenzie, as they skyrocket to fame by developing and releasing incredibly popular gaming apps. And doesn't that just sound like the most 2015 thing ever? In Season 1, Episode 6, Tiny Pickles, Kenzie and Babe are developing a new gaming app and have been invited to The Helen Show to talk about that app. Matt Bennett also guest stars in this episode as himself, and is also appearing as a guest on The Helen Show. Not as Robbie, but as the actor Matt Bennett. I'm not going to go too much into this because I'm going to save that for my longer video about the inconsistencies of the Dan Schneider universe, so if you're interested in that, follow my Twitter for updates, please. The other YouTubers are making fun of me. But anyways, long story short, Matt Bennett is kidnapped from the show and dumped on the lot. Then we see Rex, not Christopher Kane, but Rex, driving a truck by himself as he runs over Matt Bennett. Yeah, so I think we were supposed to take that as a subtle hint that Rex is real. So those are my theories surrounding the idea of Rex being real or not. And I honestly think that while there is a lot more evidence to support the idea that Rex is real, the show kind of exists in this in-between state of simultaneously reinforcing and contradicting this idea that Rex is a sentient being that can exist independently of Robbie. But I've always operated under the idea that Rex is real because it just makes it a lot more fun to watch the show that way. I never got why people are so ardently defending the idea of Rex just being a puppet, when a much more fun idea is clearly presented to us. I choose to believe that Rex is real, not just because the show wants me to, but because it just makes the viewing experience that much better. Like, how much of a boring person do you have to have these two options available to you, but completely ignore all the evidences of the more fun one and just blindly follow the less fun one? So, what's the definitive answer? What's the ultimate conclusion to this years-old debate? Rex is real because I said he's real. And if you don't agree with me, who cares? What are you gonna do, dislike this video? You really think I give a fuck? This is my channel. Rex is real because I said so. This is a universe of my making. I'm smarter and better than all of you in every conceivable way. This is my world and you're all just living in it. Nothing you think matters. No opinion you have is valid, and every belief you've ever held near and dear to your heart is just an empty echo in the void of your own existence. My opinion is the ultimate opinion. My word is law. So either get used to it or just continue living a life of meaningless existence. Desperately cling on to any hopes that your worthless lives actually matter. Just kidding, I love you guys so much. If you made it to the end of this video, thanks so much. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the Rex theories, and for God's sake, follow my Twitter. Thanks for all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
And now, as you might hear my alter ego Rex say on the show, I'm spiked out and I handle my business. Good night.